Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Peace and Parenting Podcast. I'm Michelle and I'm back and I have a guest. I love having a guest. And I have Eli Harwood from Attachment Nerd. And she's the loveliest and was at one of our events. And she has great books and she's got good advice. And her videos, when I listen to them, I'm like, hold on. I have to listen to that again. What did she say? Oh, yeah. She's just the way she explains things. They're very concise and yet very intelligent. And lots of kudos to you, Eli. So welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. It's so good to be here. It's such a gift to me to be in the context of other people that are pioneering these like messages of connection and hope and healing, and that, we're all in this together, like trying to get this ship across the seas.
Yes, we got to spread the good word.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, we got to spread the good word. So, Eli, tell us where can people find you on the interwebs?
I run my mouth mostly on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
Nice.
As the Attachment Nerd. So that's the handle you would search. And then I have some other goodies and whatnot at my website, attachmentnerd.com.
Amazing. And she has lovely books and she has a new book coming out very soon. Yeah. Yes. Securely Attached. No, tell me what the second.
Good job. That's my first book. My first book's a workbook and it's designed to help. It's for adults. It's for like, hey, I know I have some stuff from my childhood. I should probably work through it. And I should probably learn how to get my needs met in my close adult relationships so that my kids don't have to meet my needs, my emotional needs, in theory. And it's a workbook. And then my second book is called Raising Securely Attached Kids, Connected Parenting for Confidence, Empathy, and Resilience.
Yes, I can't wait to read that one. That's right up my alley.
Well, you've got an advanced copy coming your way. So
yes, ma'am. I'll be reading that.
I'm so excited.
Great. So we're going to talk about secure attachment since that's your specialty. And we're going to talk about how secure attachment affects our kids, how we can give them the most securely attached experience we possibly can, and how developmentally that works for all of us.
Love it.
So why don't you give us the 411, the 911.
The 411. The 911.
The
911. On attachment. Well, okay. First, I just want to say to all of us who are in the active throes of parenting and in the active throes of parenting in the modern life, there's so many messages about what we should do, what we shouldn't do, how we should say it, how we shouldn't say it. I made a post this morning trying to help people think about, different ways to encourage kids to do things they don't want to do. And I used sunscreen as an example. And there were multiple people on there that were like, don't use sunscreen.
You're like, not the point.
I know that I use zinc oxide. It's all good. But like also, but I think we're all constantly bombarded with messages. Yeah. And so for me, talking about attachment is so important because from a research perspective, it's really the only body of solid research we have on parenting. Yeah. And so I kind of am like, okay, well, what's the science say? What's the data say? Take me back there, because there's a lot of people saying a lot of things about a lot of elements of parenting, and I can't do all that. It's not possible for me. So what matters? And so the way I like to describe this to people is this. You're going to teach your kids all kinds of things. You're going to teach them how to ride a bike. You're going to teach them how to brush their teeth, right? You're going to guide them in how to treat other people, all of those things. But the most important lesson you're going to teach your children is whether or not they can rely on you in tender and distressing moments.
Yes, thank you.
And if they learn that lesson, so if the lesson is secure attachment, so in a secure attachment, a child says, my parent will show up for me when I'm tender and in distress. My parent will help me regulate when my nervous system is firing with excitatory neurochemicals. My caregiver will believe my tender feelings are valid, even if it's over something that's small to them, right? Like, as that lesson gets learned, some amazing things happen.
Yeah.
One, we develop trust with our children. And that trust is not cheap. That is valuable stuff, because later on in life, and you know this, your kids are in the older stages, right? We want our kids to come to us and say, hey, there's something funny going on in my relationship.
Well, we need it. If we don't have trust,
yes,
by the time they're 18, we don't have anything else. I'll tell you that with an 18-year-old right now.
By the time, it's earlier than that. And actually, our research shows that children develop this lesson by the time they're 12 months of age.
Really?
Yes. Now, that doesn't mean it can't be adjusted. So don't
Right.
freak out. It's
I was
not
like,
like
holy
you have 12 months,
moly.
you either did it or you didn't do it. But we have tests. We have a very specific, important scientific test we call the strange situation, where we
Oh, yeah.
test 12 to 18-month-olds. That's how old they are. I was trained to score this protocol and just dove into watching all the videos, understanding all the different pieces of the puzzle. And it's really good science. So we know this. So all this to say, we are always teaching our children this lesson. And in every other lesson, they are looking for this lesson. So if I'm teaching my child how to be respectful, underneath that, they are also asking, what does this tell me about whether or not my parent can be there for me when I need them?
Mm-hmm.
If I try to teach my child to be respectful by shaming them, by yelling at them, by threatening them, by trying to take things away, I am also teaching my child that I'm a bit of a loose cannon.
Well, that's so important, Eli, because people will say to me, I get a lot of this, and I don't know if you do too, because I'm a real anti-punishment, parental consequence advocate, and people get very nervous around that. And they'll say, well, you can have punishments and consequences, and you can also be connected. Those two can exist together. And
so here's the thing. I would argue that to some degree, that's true. To some degree, because a secure attachment does not require perfect interaction.
right.
And so depending on the child, so that might be true with a child who isn't highly sensitive. That might be true for a child that isn't dealing with some other massive stressor in their life or in their external world and environment. And if your version of punishment and consequences are fairly mild and you are really clear about your purpose in offering those things, but it's risky and it's not.
Well, that's what I'd say too. Like, is it worth it?
Well, also, you feel terrible. I mean, that's the thing I don't think we talk about enough. Like, for kids, but they aren't great for parents either. Like, that's
well,
not.
It doesn't no. That creates this idea that I'm using harshness to parent my child. So doesn't it create this schism between you and your kid almost, where you are relying on harshness as opposed to connection?
Yes. Well, and again, I go back to those moments where our function as a caregiver, our primary function is to offer support. We're the scaffolding our children need as they get their foundation set, as they are built up into a more developed brain and eventually an adult self. We're the scaffolding to help them get through the hard, tricky, confusing, overwhelming moments in life. And if they have come to believe that when they make a mistake or when they don't do what we want them to do, that we will add additional suffering to their process, they're less motivated to come to us to say, I don't know what to do here, or to trust our influence. So as we seek power, we lose influence. I need to write.
Right.
So
yeah. Write it down.
That's a very simple way of saying lots of things that I said. But, our goal is to seek connection, because as we seek connection, we grow in influence. And I think people think, oh, that means you're being permissive. Well, no, there's lots of ways to hold a boundary. I can hold a boundary using metaphors. I can hold a boundary using playfulness. I can hold a boundary by repeating myself. Just because it didn't happen immediately doesn't mean I'm not holding a boundary. It means my child has not yet learned to respect that boundary. And it's my job to do what they need me to do in order to help them do that. So I've watched parents, and this is one of the gifts of being a therapist for a very long time. I've watched parents with kids who are quite young. I've watched those kids grow up. I've listened to the different dynamics. And at the end of the day, kids develop. They figure out the limits. They figure out how to manage their emotions. My 4-year-old ran out of the bedroom during bedtime last night, and I was exhausted. And I have twins, so there's this whole weird thing where it's like one runs out, and then I'm like, do I stay with the one that's here so that she doesn't also run out? What do I do? But, I laid there and I just reminded myself, Eli, she won't always run out of the bedroom. I bet, and my 9-year-old, is the cutest little bedtime routine warrior. He just brushes his teeth and goes potty and puts on his little e-reader book that he listens to while he falls asleep, and I give him a kiss and he's like, I love you, Mom, good night. I'm like, that's it. He wasn't always like that. There were times when he was running out of the room. So I lay there and I think, okay, what can I do to help this moment? Knowing that I'm teaching this lesson, she'll get it.
Yeah.
And some days she's going to be better at it than other days, right?
And if we threaten her and bribe her in those moments, now we're securing the idea that we aren't safe when she runs out.
And I want you to know, true confessions, I have absolutely done that. In fact, a couple weeks ago, she was doing it in a more intense way, and she's just a force of nature. And she loves our cat so much, it hurts. And so I threatened to take away Henrietta for a day. I was like, if you leave this room again, you are not going to get to pet Henrietta tomorrow. I'm like,
sure.
What can I do to have
ever? You're never petting the cat again, ever.
And she crawled up into a little ball and sobbed. I mean, she looked at me like I had slapped her across the face and crawled into her closet and cried.
Boo.
And so did it work? I mean, she stayed in the room, but
she was in the closet, I guess.
She wasn't in bed. She wasn't rested. She wasn't sick. And then I had to repair that. I had to sit there and go, Eli, that did not, again. Plus, not to mention the fact that I just taught her, when someone doesn't do what you want them to do, try to take something away from them.
Yeah, threaten them, take their favorite thing, be mean. Yeah, I just think when we do use the punishments or whatever, and this idea that, oh yeah, well, I can be securely attached and I can use consequences and punishments. But in those ideas also, what are we teaching them? Are we teaching them to threaten and to bribe and to exert their own?
I think people think I'm teaching them I'm the boss. And what I want you to know is your kid already knows that. Kids know that.
There's no
your body, the reality of the finances, like
there's no question you're in charge,
right? But the question is, what type of a boss are you?
Yeah.
And so what you're teaching them in that moment is not that you're a boss; it's what type of a boss are you. And to me, I want my children to know that I'm going to do what it takes to get everybody what they need, including boundaries. And that means in my home, my son does not play video games except for 1 hour a day on the weekends. That's a boundary. And, sometimes there's emotions around ending, and sometimes, there's begging and pleading for more. And it's my job as a parent to say, I'm so sorry. You know what? I'm keeping this in this way for these reasons. And then to be creative about how to help him emotionally accept the boundary or literally accept the boundary. If I was to find him, playing secretly somewhere I would say, oh, buddy, this is so hard. This really feels like overwhelming and my trust is violated. We're going to need to take a break. Now there's a new boundary. And this is where it gets a little blurry. I think boundaries and consequences are different things.
Yeah.
So some people would say what I'm about to tell you is a consequence, but I'm not aiming it at my child. So what I'm doing is I'm going to say, I'm going to need to keep the switch. I was going to call it the snitch. The switch. I'm going to need to keep the switch in my bedroom during the week from now on.
Fair enough.
Because what I can see is
he can't do it.
And that's not your fault, buddy. These are designed to make you want more. We need to reevaluate what specific games you're playing also, because I can tell they're not letting you stop easily.
Totally.
They're looking into your brain. So again, my goal is not to make him suffer. And he can feel that. We can feel this relationally from people.
Right.
Like,
well, it's different than saying like, okay, now you got your hour taken away for the rest of the week.
Yep. That's a punishment. That's an inflicted consequence, whatever you want to call it. But it has different relational juice.
Yeah.
Right. Then like, oh, buddy, I'm so sorry. I can tell this is overwhelming you. So here's what I'm going to do. Or even, I'm actually not sure what I'm going to do. I got to think about this for a little while, but.
Or is it, what do you think we should do, honey? What do you think? What's a better place for this thing to live so that we aren't so tempted? Is it the safe? We should put it in the safe.
Right. And we use language like cravings. How can I help you with these cravings?
Yes.
You're having this craving, and I know that you need more different types of nourishment, right? You need to be outside, you need to do whatever. And then there are days and times where it's like, you don't even have to do much. They walk in and they see them, and they're like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. And and
you're like, me catching him in the act was the consequence. It felt terrible to him.
Well, he got to his own guilt, right? And his shame and his remorse on his own. We didn't need to add any extra. And that can be a lesson and a consequence of its own.
Yep.
Yeah. And what I see with older kids now, mine are 15 and 18, is that and I probably get roasted for this, but I don't really care. You don't need so many boundaries when they get older because they boundary themselves.
Yes.
They know right from wrong. They want to do the right thing. They want to please you. You have great influence. Sure, they're going to mess up, but they mess up with or without anything, right?
Yes.
And so I think my kids, like, I just kind of trust them.
Well, I like to say that teenagers are practiced grown-ups. So our goal is not to prevent our teenagers from messing up while they're teenagers and then they're safely into adulthood. Our goal is for them to mess up while they are in close proximity to us, while we can be a voice of support and understanding when they, come back from that party they maybe shouldn't have gone to or do, whatever, that we are able to help, again, stay in a position of support. I can be there for you. Not, I will control you, and if you disobey me, then you will reap the consequences of that. That's a dominance-based way of relating, which is very insecure. Right? So,
and then there becomes all these places for resentment and anger and rebellion and withdraw and all the things we see with the teenage kids, and it's hard to unravel that.
Oof. Absolutely. And that's why I started running my mouth on the internet, is as a therapist, I was helping people unravel it. And it is hard. It's possible. It takes a lot of time, effort, and money. And I was sitting there going, there are ways to, I know this. There's science behind preventing some of these dynamics. Let's get it out there in the world and start offering people a way to understand the science. Because I know the average person isn't going to go pick up a copy of Affect Regulation, Mentalization, and the Development of the Self, right?
Boring. Boring. I'd rather listen to you, Eli.
It would happen because life form. Like, okay, so I want my child to mentalize. Well, what is that? Well, that's a child body. Put words to those sensations and then take healthy actions. So what that means is I want my child to go, I'm sad. This is what sadness feels like in my body. I can recognize it. I know it. I can share it. I can articulate it. And therefore I can cope with it and manage it. Mm-hmm. And we can only help children do that if we are connected to them, right? Mm-hmm. We emotion train our children just like we potty train our children. A lot of them that they should take their emotions, ignore them, swallow them, right? And find other ways to cope with that feeling state. And what we want our kids to do is to go, oh, I need to cry. I need to find someone I can talk with and cry with. Yeah. Oh, I feel angry about something. I'm feeling violated. I need to go on a run and try and process what happened to me and how I can advocate for myself. Right? Like, we want our kids to have nuanced access to their inner world. Yeah. So they can handle it.
And what's beautiful is
as they get
And what's beautiful is if we can get to be that place for them, at least while they're young. Oh no. Did I lose you?
Our home. Blink of an arms.
Yeah. So good. I'm losing you, Eli. Is your internet good? Oh, no. We're struggling, everybody. We're struggling today.
Oh, no. My husband's outside working on some garage, and I'm like, if he cuts off my internet, that'd be a real bummer. But I guess it's still on because I can still hear you.
You can? Okay. It's in and out. It's a little in and out. And it's delayed a little.
Okay. Is that getting better? A little bit.
Yeah, a little better. Yeah. Well, I think we covered a lot. The one thing I wanted to talk about is the relationship patterns that, kind of drag on from our own childhood into our parenting, and how how those kind of affect the way we parent and affect the way we can or cannot or have trouble with securely attaching to our kids. So what do you see?
Okay.
What do you see in your
So
practice?
this will be the fast. Okay, so this is the fast rundown. So folks that grew up with parents who really were not able to be there for their emotional needs. So consistently could not.
Yeah.
They might have been disconnected people, so people that were very like feelings, I'm out of here. Or they might have been enmeshed people who were like feelings, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Either way, inability to help regulate and attune in a way that parent learned in childhood, the best thing to do is disconnect from myself and feelings, to unburden other people from my emotional needs, and to disconnect from other people's emotions in fear that if I come close, they will feel burdened by me or I will be intrusive in some way. So then you get into parenting and you give birth to children and you discover that, oh my gosh, they are literally just piles of feelings for years. So what do you do in that moment, right? Well, your nervous system says flee, but you're in charge of them,
Yes.
right? So that's one dilemma. We call that avoidant attachment in childhood and dismissive attachment in adulthood. The other are folks who had caregivers who were intermittently there for them. So, I always say one of the most effective forms of torture that I know of from the military is intermittent reinforcement. So some days I'm going to be there for you, some days I'm not. That makes people feel cool, right?
Yeah.
And it is honestly, I think in some ways creates more pain. Yeah, because I know what it feels like when you're good to me. But I don't know if that's who you're going to be right now or not.
Oh, that makes my heart hurt.
Yes. So, and that was my experience growing up. With my mom, I had an avoidant dynamic with my dad, but with my mom, she had a lot of real serious mental health stuff. She grew up in a very abusive home, and she was doing what she could. She was not abusive to us, but she struggled with depression. She struggled with her own sense of self-worth. So there were moments where she was sturdy enough that we could rely on her. And then there were other moments where not only could we not rely on her, but she actually ended up relying on us because she was struggling so much.
Oh, that's hard.
I know. Lots of therapy. But you know
Sweet
what?
lady.
She's a sweet lady. And she's done her work, which is amazing. And
Good
she
for
knows
her.
I can talk about this actively without fear that she will be offended or upset. How incredible is that?
Good for her for doing that work.
She was amazing. But so with that experience, you develop what's called a resistant pattern in childhood or a preoccupied pattern in adulthood. So in childhood, you learn to be hypervigilant. You feel like it's your job to make sure that your caregiver notices what you need. So you try to be charming and lovely and good and funny or dramatic and loud or whatever it takes to get your caregiver to stay close and attuned to you. And you don't soothe very easily. Because if I'm soothed, the attention will go away from me. And that scares me. And I don't know when it will come back again. So I'm trying to
constantly bubbling with some sort of,
So now I come into parenthood. And I am wired to be hypervigilant. And my children are born and they're big balls of feelings. And now what? Does this mean I've ruined them? Is this?
You're constantly worried that you're doing something
normal
wrong.
Behavior? Is this normal behavior? Is that normal behavior? Is it me? Am I being blah, blah, blah? And again, you can't offer your child a sense of refuge if you yourself are not in a place of calmness. Right? So you have to figure out how to work through, like that first parent who grew up with an avoidant dismissive dynamic has to learn how to feel their feelings, tolerate feeling states by moving towards them.
Yeah.
The second parent, this resistant, preoccupied parent, they have to learn how to breathe through their feelings and give feelings a little bit less weight.
Yeah,
to be able to go, it's okay. Feelings are here. We can all handle this, right?
Yep.
The third insecure category are folks who grew up with abusive parents who were scary or frightening in some way, or that abuse might have been at the child. It also might have been like severe drug abuse, like heroin, meth, things that made the parent erratic and frightening. That person has what's called a disorganized experience in childhood. And if they haven't been able to do any healing, then adulthood, we call it an unresolved style. And what the hardest part of that is that there's some really deeply distorted beliefs about oneself and about needs and behaviors. And so that often comes out again, have a child, big ball of feelings. The disorganized parent has inherited, what's wrong with you? You're so dramatic towards the child or towards their self. There might be, abusive patterns behaviorally that have transmitted, wanting to physically harm a child if they are disobedient in some way, shape, or form. But they're really not able to handle emotions because for this parent, emotions feel like danger. And so they're going to respond to their child's emotional state as threat. So when their child is upset, it will feel threatening to them.
Yeah.
And so that's a rough one. That's
a really hard one.
It's the rough. I mean, it's the rough. I actually think it's the roughest human experience to be a tiny person and be afraid of the person who's supposed to give you shelter. I don't think there's anything else scarier in all of human life.
No.
Maybe your child, but even losing your child, you have a brain that can process
that. And it wasn't like you have a whole lived traumatic experience, right? You had this good experience with your child and they died, but you didn't have this ongoing trauma.
Yeah. I mean, not that we have to create the suffering Olympics, but I do think it is really brutal.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of people out there, who have experienced abuse in one way or another. A lot of people. And it's very hard to come to your kids in a gentle way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and then the fourth category, you can either inherit or learn, which is one of my favorite things about attachment research. It isn't genetic. It's not embedded in the sense that it's a permanent trait. It's something that we learn from our caregivers. They learn from theirs, and we can adjust and shift. So, secure parents have children born as big balls of emotion, same as everybody else, but there's this simultaneous sense of I can be connected and separate. I can be with you and calm in myself. And it doesn't mean that you don't get frustrated. All secure parents get frustrated and overwhelmed. And depending on who your child is, it's a totally different obstacle course, right? Some kids are really sensitive. Some kids are neurodivergent, right? And what you as a caregiver are navigating is also different. You could have a secure attachment with your caregivers, but be a person of color in a world that's very racist.
Yeah.
You're dealing with a whole other thing, right? So there's a lot of nuance and specificity here. This is not like, what type are you? And you can have different attachments.
Well, I was going to say, can you weave in and out of these? Because I'm like, I think I'm secure, but I think I go also to this idea of avoidant a little bit. And like, I think I move in and out of a few of these.
Well, so it's like, what's the overall pattern?
Yeah.
Like if you looked at it overall, what's the overall pattern that you engage in? Yes, we do all of these things. All of us do all of these things to some degree. But what's kind of the resonating theme? And you have different attachment experiences with different caregivers. Like I mentioned earlier, like I had a different one with my dad than with my mom.
Me too.
And so I think that also informs some of how our brain shapes and what that looks like.
There's a lot to unravel in all of this.
Yes, it definitely is.
It's way too much.
Okay, but let's make it really simple. Let's end on a really simple note on this. For those who want to go deeper, go buy my books. You can go deeper.
Yes, please buy her books.
But to simple it up, when we are offering our children a secure experience, we're doing these 4 things. We're showing up. So show up for those tender moments and those triumphant moments, right? Be there to try to teach them to ride a bike. Be there when they scrape their knee falling off of the bike, right? Now, this is not about being there 24/7 all the time. You cannot. Do your best. And try and put your children into care with other people who also do these things, People say like, if I send my kid to child care, will they have a secure attachment with me? And the answer is possibly. The best case scenario is that you have other secure caregivers that are helping reinforce these patterns, right? So show up, listen up. It is not a one-way street between parents and children. It is not about them hearing us. It's about us hearing each other. So listen to them, hear their needs, hear their goofy antics. Tell that their voice is to your ear. Light up when they come in the room. Light up when you see them after school. light up about their work, light up about the things they're proud about, light up when they see a bug on the sidewalk and they're so filled with glee they can hardly even talk. Watch that bug with them and light up alongside them, right? So show up, listen up, light up. And then when you miss on some of those things, because life, make up. Work to be the leader of repair. Come back around and say, I'm sorry I was so harsh, kid. I'm so sorry I missed that moment. I'm sorry I was distracted with this or that. Can I have a redo? Here's how I really feel about that. Do your best to repair. Not anxiously. Not, I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh. Forgive me. Not anxiously. Right? Also not with a butt. Not with a big butt, you know. I'm sorry, but just, hey, this happened. I wish it hadn't happened. Can I have a redo?
Oh my God. I used to be like the profuse apologizer. Oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Are you sure you're okay with that? They were like, Mom, honestly, yes. Like, stop making me responsible for your feelings. I was like, oh yeah, this is not bad. This is backfiring, this apology here.
I mean, that's from your own trauma, right? Like
totally.
There's some panic and terror. If you were a kid who had some of that ambivalence, you felt very responsible to make sure that your caregiver was good with you.
Yeah.
Right. And so then you go into parenthood and you kind of put that onto kids too, because you're like, it's my job. I got to make sure. Even more so, right? Because I'm the parent.
Right.
Yeah. So, you know, making up does not have to be self-effacing. It does not have to be because this is something your kids will mess up too. And they need the model for what to do when they mess up.
Right. Just the, you know, matter of fact, I'm sorry.
Yep. And if that doesn't hit, if a kid's still pissed or
let them,
you know, they need time.
Yeah. Sometimes one time I think Esme said to me, I don't accept your apology. And I was like, okay, you know, I didn't like that, but I was like, oh, okay, I guess we're not accepting that today. We were moving on. Good for you for being able to say that to me, but I don't like it, but okay.
Yep. Okay. I hear you. And I'll be here. I'll be here when you're ready, you know, and also, what do you need from me? What else do you need?
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Too.
You know, and so we're going to show up, listen up, light up, and make up. If you can do those 4 things and do it 30% of the time, according to the research.
Yeah, that's what I heard too. 30%. I like that. But I wonder, should we do it a little more? But I like the 30%.
You know, I think I mean, we need more and more research on this always. We always need more research. I read another study that said 50%.
Yeah.
If I was to guess my own rate of synchronicity, you know, I think when it comes to those tender and triumphant moments, I have a pretty high rate. I bet it's like 80% hit rate on those things.
Yeah.
Throughout the day, it's probably more like 30% because there's work to be done. There's dishes to be done.
Well, and an 8 p.m., I'm at 10%.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm like, bye, y'all. I cannot. Yeah. You have a problem. It has to wait till tomorrow. Sorry. I have no bandwidth. But I mean, I guess we're averaging them, right?
Yes. And I use that number just to reassure parents because the parent who's listening to this podcast is trying really hard.
Of course.
And so, you know, it's okay.
Yeah.
Hang in there. You got this.
They do have it. And if they're listening, they care. And that's where it starts. We just have to care to want to do it. That's it. We really do. Eli, you were so amazing. Thank you. I always like talking to you. I can't wait to get your book.
Yay. And I've got yours. So that's so exciting.
Yes. So good. All right, my dear. So everybody can find you at Attachment Nerd on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, and eliharwood.com, right?
Attachmentnerd.com.
Oh, attachmentnerd.com. Okay. You're everywhere. Attachment
Nerd. Really, if you've got Attachment Nerd grilled into your head by now, you'll be able to find me out in the wide, wide world.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us here on the Peace and Parenting Podcast, Eli, and we'll see you in the online world somewhere.
Sounds good. Bye.